The moment I stepped into that dimly lit conference room in the heart of downtown Arlington, Virginia, I felt the air thicken like a storm about to break. Sarah, the HR director, was already there. Her smile too polished, too rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in front of a mirror to mask the knife she was about to twist. The blinds were drawn just enough to soften the afternoon sun filtering through the high-rise windows, casting long shadows across the sleek oak table. A single cup of coffee sat in front of my usual seat, black. No cream. No sugar. As if she knew me intimately. But she didn't. It was a prop. A feeble attempt to humanize what was coming. I sat down without a word, my heart pounding in a slow, deliberate rhythm that echoed the years of quiet vigilance I'd built in this cutthroat world of federal contracts and corporate compliance. Sarah slid a crisp sheet of paper toward me, her manicured nails tapping once, twice, like a countdown. "It's just a formality, Emily," she said, her voice laced with that artificial warmth HR types wield like a weapon. "This way, it's cleaner for everyone. Looks better on your resume too." I didn't respond. I just read it. My name typed neatly at the top. The date already filled in today's date. The words blurred for a second. "I hereby resign effective immediately." It wasn't my letter. It was theirs. Pre-written. Pre-approved. A scripted exit they hoped I'd swallow without a fight. But in the header, faint but unmistakable, lingered a ghost from their digital draft, a comment tag she'd overlooked. "Push for signature today to avoid complications." My pulse quickened. Not with fear, but with the cold clarity of someone who's spent a decade archiving every misstep in a system designed to erase people like me. I signed it. Slowly. Deliberately. Letting the pen glide across the page as if sealing a pact with the devil himself. Sarah's eyes lit up, her shoulders relaxing as she leaned back, thinking she'd won. She didn't know I'd captured the moment, my phone discreetly angled under the table, snapping a photo of that damning header before she could whisk the paper away. As I stood to leave, the room felt smaller, the air heavier with unspoken betrayal. 7 years at Apex Defense Solutions. Cleaning up their messes, the rushed vendor approvals, the backdated audits, the quiet deviations from federal procurement rules that kept their multi-million-dollar contracts with the DoD flowing smoothly. I'd been their silent guardian, the compliance officer who flagged risks without fanfare, who documented every exception in triplicate because I knew, deep down, that loyalty in corporate America was a one-way street. And now, they'd turned on me. Not with a bang, but with this velvet-gloved shove toward the door. Walking back to my desk, I felt the weight of it settle in my chest, a dull ache. Not just from the rejection, but from the realization that trust here was as fragile as the glass walls partitioning our open-plan office. Brent, my boss, avoided my gaze as I passed his corner suite, his usual curt nods replaced by a studied focus on his screen. The signs had been there for weeks, the sudden efficiency reviews, the calendar invites I wasn't on, the whispers in the break room about streamlining. But this was personal. A forced resignation disguised as choice. A betrayal that gnawed at the core of who I was, a woman who'd clawed her way up from entry-level filings to overseeing compliance for sensitive government deals, only to be discarded like an outdated policy manual. That night, in my modest apartment overlooking the Potomac, the silence amplified everything. I poured myself a glass of iced tea, no sugar, just like the coffee they'd offered, and opened my personal laptop, the one not tied to company servers. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled up the folder I'd maintained for years, personal archives. Inside were scans of my original employment contract, every amendment, every HR memo I'd ever received. Page 12. Section 5.2. Any resignation prompted or encouraged by company representatives, absent prior documented employee intent, shall be deemed employer-initiated termination for purposes of severance and equity vesting. The words stared back at me. A lifeline I'd negotiated in after the last reorg nearly cost me everything. Sarah had fought it back then, calling it unnecessary verbiage, but I'd insisted, drawing on that quiet resolve born from watching colleagues vanish overnight without a safety net. Now, it was my shield. I attached the photo of the resignation letter to an email, timestamped it, and sent it to my personal account with a subject line that cut like glass: coerced exit evidence. The betrayal burned hotter now, morphing into a simmering rage, not explosive yet, but building, layer by layer, like pressure in a fault line. Why me? Because I knew too much? Because my meticulous records exposed the cracks in their facade? Sleep evaded me that night, replaced by visions of Sarah's smile cracking, of Brent's avoidance turning to regret. Silence had been my armor, now it would be my weapon. By mid-February, the office atmosphere had turned toxic, a low hum of tension that prickled my skin every time I swiped my badge through the lobby doors. Emails from Sarah grew terse. Stripped of pleasantries, review attached policy update. No, hope you're well, no small talk. Brent's weekly check-ins vanished, replaced by delegated tasks that felt like afterthoughts. I overheard snippets in the elevator: cost-cutting, headcount optimization, euphemisms that masked the human cost. But I didn't confront them. Instead, I doubled down on my documentation. BCNG myself on every compliance report, every flagged irregularity in our Virginia-based defense procurements. Apex wasn't just any tech firm. We handled classified integrations for military systems, where one audit slip could trigger federal investigations. I'd fixed their oversights before: vendor onboarding shortcuts, incomplete change logs, but now, those same habits would undo them. The hurt deepened. A psychological wound that festered in the quiet moments, the isolation at lunch, the sidelong glances from team members who sensed the axe falling but didn't know where. It wasn't just a job, it was my identity, eroded by their calculated indifference. Yet, in that pain, a plan crystallized. I contacted a labor attorney discreetly, sharing the basics without names, feeling the first spark of empowerment amid the betrayal. The price of their choice? They'd soon learn it wasn't free. The trap snapped shut on a rainy Monday morning, the kind where the DC traffic crawls and tempers fray. Sarah appeared at my cubicle like a specter, her face a mask of feigned concern. "Quick chat," she said, leading me to the frosted glass room at the hall's end. The coffee was there again, steaming mockingly. She wasted no time. "We're suggesting this path for you: resignation. It's voluntary, professional." Her words hung heavy, laced with implication. I signed without protest, capturing the margin note in another discreet photo: advise immediate signature to minimize exposure. As she exhaled in relief, I felt a surge of quiet triumph beneath the ache. This wasn't surrender, it was the pivot. Back home, I compiled the dossier: contract clauses, email trails, document metadata showing Sarah's edits urging haste. The emotional toll hit hard then, tears blurring my screen as the full weight of their treachery sank in, years of loyalty repaid with manipulation. But rage fueled me, transforming hurt into resolve. I forwarded everything to my attorney, who drafted the reclassification demand: treat this as termination without cause, triggering full severance and equity acceleration, plus penalties for delay. The response came swift and panicked. By Tuesday, access logs showed frantic activity, files were named, permissions revoked, but it was too late. My attorney's letter landed in their inboxes like a grenade: evidence attached, clause invoked. I imagined Sarah's face paling as legal dissected her shortcuts, her soft language exposed as coercion. The silence I'd endured now echoed back at them, amplifying their dread. Finance scrambled, realizing the $80,000 penalty loomed if unpaid within 30 days. The betrayal scar throbbed. But so did a grim satisfaction, not vengeance for its own sake, but justice for the erased, the overlooked. Thursday brought their capitulation, an email from General Counsel admitting classification confirmed as employer-initiated, my severance wired, equity vested. But the cost lingered for me. The eroded trust in systems I'd once believed in, for them. A public SEC footnote in their quarterly filing reclassified separation due to procedural errors, a permanent stain on their polished image. Sarah called once, offering a transitional role, her voice cracking with desperation. I declined, letting silence speak the final word. In the end, their choice to betray cost more than money, it shattered illusions, leaving us all scarred by the price of unchecked power.